Hey, good morning. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. It is the 1st of March 2024. Yes, so yeah, we are into March already. And marching forward, we are, even though it's a Friday, we're marching into the weekend. As I say, big good morning to our special guest this morning, our analyst in the house, Joseph Obari at the nation's capital.
Good morning, Mashe. Good morning, Ebi. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, the whole world.
Good morning, AB Bozimo. Welcome. AB,
Good
good morning
morning
to
to
you.
everyone in the studio, all the wonderful listeners. And I'm surprised Joseph isn't in Qatar. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Am I?
hear you.
I'm
Yes.
surprised Joseph isn't
I
in
was
Qatar.
dropped out of the list at the last minute.
Who did you dirty that way, man? That means you were sleeping on a bicycle somewhere or in the train yesterday. A final list. Well, let's go on, gentlemen. We'd like to know that we invite the listener at this moment, especially to join the analyst in helping us get a better perspective of these papers this morning. You know, as they say, knowledge is never too much. And then you know what they say about if two good heads are better than one. Imagine what you can do with, more than that number. That's why we invite you to come into the papers. But let's get your thoughts as WhatsApp message when you send them across to the WhatsApp platform 0809 444 0981 WhatsApp message. You can as well go over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and then leave a comment there. Just give it a thumbs up and you're part of the family. So we begin with the papers as we ask AB to do us the honors this morning, even if yeah, taking a jibe at it's a season of jibes somewhere along the way, but it's taking a jibe and Obari missing out on Qatar. But take us to the EU, that's the European Union, as it connects to Nigeria. Looking at this headline from the Vanguard newspaper, where it says the federal government, the European Union commits to deepening stronger ties. How so? And how much allowance should we leave around the neck if you're fixing that tie? And what not is the best?
Well, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, made this advocacy during a courtesy call by the members of the EU. The EU has a very interesting rivalry, if you will, now with the United Kingdom, because since the UK left the UK is trying to strengthen its ties. The EU doesn't want to let go of the ties that we already have. And indeed, there are many ties we have, with the EU when it comes to um, oil and gas interests, manufacturing, research, and innovation. In fact, they presented a pamphlet of 230 companies that are doing business in Nigeria. I am intrigued. To what extent are those 230 companies actually benefiting Nigerians and the Nigerian economy? Or are they predominantly benefiting the EU? Sure, it's very appropriate for Nigeria to deepen and strengthen ties and explore new areas of collaboration with anyone and everyone who will benefit Nigeria. Those 230 companies, that's literally one company per working weekday across across a whole year. Yet Nigeria was adjudged the poverty capital for years upon years. What good indeed are those links doing? These, I think, are the kinds of questions that those in leadership positions, those who have the privilege of being leaders in Nigeria, must consistently ask and get cogent answers. There are ways to collaborate across sustainable investment, ways to deepen Nigeria's economic growth. I think the first thing, instead of us always pursuing this forex, foreign direct investment, make our country a haven where others would say, you know what, there can be no better return on investment than coming to Nigeria. In that way, we will stop pursuing them from pillar to post, from Qatar to UAE, and they will be the ones coming to ask us to plead with us that they want to put money in our economy. I heard the talk back and forth, climate change, migration, infrastructure deficits. Nigeria has no excuse and no reason to be enduring these things after 64 years. And hopefully in another story, we will demonstrate how we're improving that. But this is one of those junkets, in my view. The EU, they got diplomatic visas. They had a chance to travel to the summer. They are living winter in that country, coming to Africa to
Abi,
enjoy some
Abi,
sunshine.
we might have to ask you
Welcome.
to, Abi.
Drop something when you're going back. At the end of the day, get one thing from this story about how it directs the long-term future.
Okay. At some point, your network was wobbly at some point. So that's what we're trying to make sure, just in case. But now it was better at the point where you were concluding your thoughts. But let's hope it stays this way. So, Joe,
Apologies.
are there some, well, even the service provider, one of the ones with a favorite color that looks like the sun, most often than not, I had apologies to tender. So, well, we accept that from you too. We know it's beyond you. Joseph, there's some things you want to add to what he said, taking advantage and making these these ties we keep talking about to translate into euros, because this is the eurozone we are talking about right now, and we can't seem to see it. And just on a lighter note also, how nice is it to grab a man around the neck with a tie? Since we're looking at ties, although let's sort that out. You're the lawyer.
Yeah. Just be careful not to strangle the man. That's why it legal complications for you. But the point is that I think the area that interests me is the agreements that Nigeria is supposed to sign with EU countries, which when it was the Samoa agreement, for example, when it came up last year, generated a whole lot of controversies. First of all, when the agreement was signed, Nigeria wasn't sitting at the table, so they never signed the agreement. And then there were concerns by civil society groups that there are certain aspects of that agreement that alludes to LGBT issues. And so some people feel Nigeria shouldn't sign it. But then if you look at the details of that agreement, it's actually supposed to open up the European market to Nigerians to be able to have businesses to do. And these are the things I expect the minister should be talking about. It is not how much they should come here to come and give us money, give us aids and support and programs, which, I mean, the EU is investing over 500 million euros in Nigeria alone. I mean, more than that, in different projects, soft projects in social development, also in economic aspects of our economy, and also in developing democracy, in strengthening democracy. So there are soft projects here and there the EU is supporting. Beyond this foreign aid money that comes in that politicians and public officials just get greedy over, a lot of it not accounted for. We should be arguing and negotiating for a place in the economy of Europe. We should be playing in that field. That's what I think we should be talking about. And how can we make that tie balanced? Because right now, just as B said, there is no balance. They did a pamphlet listing how many of their countries are operating in Nigeria in the oil. How many of did our minister have details of how we are faring in Europe and what roles we are playing and whether there's a balance? And those are the kind of cerebral discussions our leaders should be having with these people when they engage them, and not come and help us, come and do this, come and invest in this, come and help us feed us,
All right, let's reach out to a next paper, the Daily Trust newspaper, and we're still hoping that Joe, you would help us get a better perspective. And he talks about how the reps pass a Peace Corps bill. At some point in the story, it talks about how this bill had been passed sometime in December last year, but then it returns just barely a couple of months back again. What was missing in the surgery?
Yeah, I think the reps felt that, okay, there were certain things that were not adequately addressed in the bill they previously passed. And I think that's not a bad thing to do. take a step back and say, oh, look, because at this point when you're conceiving or actually shaping the act, it is the best way to correct whatever thing you think is missing. And they took a step backward and tried to correct those things and then pass the bill again. But the interesting thing is that when the Nigerian Peace Corps idea first batted, there were oppositions against it. Some people didn't like it. They fought the idea and so on, because some people felt that the Peace Corps was going to clash with the civil defense, and some people were not comfortable. Today, civil defense has been elevated to almost a paramilitary outfit, is doing more of security. Actually comes. It was a private initiative. Actually, it was like a non-profit organization set up by an individual, hoping to address a pool for youth to be able to participate in volunteerism and all kinds of civil activity. So you give a role for youth to play actively, and they can become very helpful link, intelligence gathering and so on, because they're going to play at the community level in society and be able to contribute to feeding the security network with intelligence. If it is well shaped and organized properly, it can be of a lot of advantage to our country. And they also pull a number of young people off the street, because what has happened with this is that it has been accepted by government more or less. It has the backing of the Ministry of Budget, Ministry of Finance, and so on, and it's recognized. Now, the National Assembly is even giving it a legal backing by creating an act that will support it. I think it's a brilliant initiative in its own.
Yeah, let's hope that the last I's and the T's have been crossed for now. It will go back again in about 2 months to say something was missing along the way. But let's go over to AB. This story evokes some of those comments you've made on this platform of sometimes your dream for Lagos being the Venice of Africa, or Venice being the Lagos of Europe or something. That's conversely put now. But looking at the Nation newspaper, it talks about the Lagos Red Rail Line takes off, and that's a fall-off out of the event of yesterday. So I'd like you to speak to this. How does that influence the transport architecture of Lagos in that march towards a mega status?
By first of all making the blue line take off, and now this red line phase 1, Lagos is steadily marching into the arena of fellow megacities. It is inconceivable that a megacity that takes itself seriously would not have a mass transportation medium. In many of the cities that we see in the movies and all that, people don't even bother owning vehicles because they can get from most points to other points without owning a car. You can rent a car for certain times, but you don't need to own one on an ongoing basis. And for this, you have to give kudos to the government of Lagos State. Slowly but surely, Lagos is taking its rightful position as arguably the 5th largest economy on the continent of Africa. We're not talking about in this country, on the continent. I think it's about the 5th largest. And kudos to the governor and his team for making this happen. Imagine at this initial time, 250,000 people can be moved. Imagine how many fewer vehicles will be on the road. Think of the emissions that will be reduced. Think of the relative comfort. It'll take an hour of commuting times one way. So people are going to gain back 2 average hours in a day. Think of that across in terms of your interaction with your family and your children. Quality of life will go up. In many of these situations, these trains are at least relatively well air-conditioned. So comfort, getting to and from work, in terms of improved productivity, you are going to get an uptick. This is one of the best things. Apparently, this idea was laid in place by current President Tinubu when he was then governor of Lagos State. And Lagos has benefited from people inching forward. You can have your quibbles about the budget that is used to make some of these things when you benchmark them against that happens in other countries. But the fact is, I've always said, if X amount of money is spent and you get results, then you can now look at refining the process of procurement. What hurts most in Nigeria as a whole is X amount of money is spent and you get national darkness. X amount of money is spent, you get a pathetic healthcare system. So in this case, X amount of money was spent, and the good people of Lagos State have this as one of the transportation media in the state. This is added to rail, it is added to monorail, is added to water routes, is added to BRT corridors, and of course, the normal buses and taxis that exist. So I think this is a fantastic step forward in terms of what the average person can get to live and experience in Lagos. I am hoping seriously that these routes also connect some of the important infrastructure in Lagos, like the airports and so on. People should be able to arrive in a state like Lagos and get to other points by using these mediums. And let it not be that certain interests reject the idea of connecting this to important places like airports and other ports. But kudos to Lagos state government, kudos to the governor, kudos to the president who apparently laid the foundation stone for it. And fantastic for Lagos. They're going to Agbado, Iju, Agege, Ikeja, Oshodi, Mushin, Yaba, Oyingbo. These are places that I only know by bus. I know I got lost when I came to Lagos for my NYSC. When I thought they were saying Yaba Sabo, they were saying Oyingbo. And I got there and they said, who called Oyingbo? It was crazy.
You're welcome to Lagos.
Is a mystery, but some of the mystery is being unraveled by the production of this marvelous thing. 250,000 initially, 750,000 eventually, and a connection with the Blue Line. Kudos to Lagos. This to me is the story of the day. It's a story of advancement. It's a story of what is possible. You can always complain, oh, Lagos has the greatest revenue. Well, see what they're doing with the revenue. Now, can the Niger Delta states wake up? They get a huge amount in terms of the oil, oil derivation, whatever that 13% thing is. And where are we? We have buses with the governor's face on them. Is that what we're talking about? Please, let's grow up and become reasonable. I say also, when I say kudos to Lagos, places like Rivers, places like Port Harcourt and Warri should be the Dubai or better of Nigeria. Get cracking, Niger Delta governors. Let's see what's possible. Kudos to Lagos State.
All right, just to remind you, if you're listening, that you can be part of this conversation. It's freshly pressed, and we expect your thoughts in relation to the headlines we are treating this morning with Joseph Obari and AB Bozimo. Get your thoughts across onto 0809-444-0981. Joe, you might have a little sprinkling on this, the birth of the Red Rail Line commissioned in Lagos by the president yesterday. And taking off from what Joseph has said, Lagos seems to be making the rest 35 states look like bad students in the classroom right now.
I like that. I don't care what it is anybody feels, but the important thing is that leadership is thinking, and they are applying these thoughts to translating into action that is affecting the economy. Let states compete. That's what we actually want to see. Let us Nigerians say, because for what's happened in all these years is simply that people sit down, the resources come from the center, they share, they go and spend it, and then everybody's lazy. So that's why some people keep agitating that we actually need to rework our constitution in such a way that we weaken the center and make the states look for their means of survival. So but that's a debate for another day. There are many things that can be benefiting from getting to think about this kind of thing. I mean, look at Rivers State, for example. Somebody started a monorail project and it was abandoned by the successor because it's the other person that started it. It's a different person, so I won't do it. It's not a matter of how it started, but what is the principle behind it? I say, okay, we can have continuity. And a bit talked about, why can't the entire Niger Delta be linked, or to have what Lagos has. So, I mean, there is no excuse at all.
Okay, so that takes us to the Punch newspaper still in your purview right now. Reps, that's the House of Representatives, recommend compulsory drug tests for secondary school students. Let's know the real science students at this moment and the illegal ones. So, Abi, speak to this. And that's for you, Joseph.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah.
said Abi. I was confused.
My
Yeah,
bad.
okay. All right. So the point is, I think this is a very important thing. If we
Joseph, your line is cracking up, so we'll get AB. AB, can you just jump on while we get to reestablish contact with Joseph?
Boy has an idea of how, I think we should be screaming on rooftops now. And
go on, Joe. We're listening.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I think it's very important. I support it totally, but it is the implementation that is my concern. How well can this be done? And they called on the ministries of education and health to synergize and see how this can work. Like they say, the devil is in the details. Let us see how well this can be coordinated. And it shouldn't be just one thing that comes up and then it fizzles out. There are different kinds of testing kits that can be used for this. How well can it be deployed? Is it that you're going to send health teams?
All right. This is the point where you come in, maybe just help us sum this and we go over to the next paper.
You know, students and their lives are the future for all of us. If we don't take good care of them at this stage, if we don't prevent them from, falling subject to, unfortunate things like drugs, then we don't have a future. And so,
go on, maybe
it's imperative that it's a properly organized program to help protect the children from themselves, their children after all, and two, to also note those who are providing these illicit substances should be properly discovered and prosecuted. We must protect the children so that they are able to grow up and protect themselves eventually.
All right, so staying with you. The Daily Trust is what you would help us unpack right now, and that's speaking to food insecurity. Ukraine in quote and in caps, sends grains to Nigeria. Speak to us. Is this same Ukraine being invaded by Russia still taking our time to reach out to neighbors and the world? AB.
Ukraine has a land area of 606,000 kilometers square. Nigeria has one of almost 1,964,000 kilometers square. Ukraine, that is in the middle of an existential crisis, at war, still with the help of Canada, UK, Denmark, Finland, France, Luxembourg, Norway, and the Republic of Korea and Sweden, found it within their good hearts to send 25,000 metric tons of wheat to a hapless Nigeria. How on earth do we look at ourselves in the mirror when we wake up and see a war-torn country still sending us food aid when on a good day, we should be sending food aid to both Ukraine and Russia? Do we understand how embarrassing we appear in the eyes of the world? And we had somebody who is the person, the Nigerian part, who was standing up and thanking them. It is just so disgraceful that we have not been able to get our act together to the extent that we can support not just ourselves, but at least even our neighboring countries. There is something manifestly wrong with our managerial cadre in Nigeria. I'm talking about our governing class and those who advise them. It's helpful for the people that the wheat will go to, but I repeat, utterly and absolutely disgraceful that we need to get this help because we cannot keep our farmlands and farmers secure. That is why they cannot go and farm. We cannot make the roads to evacuate the produce. We cannot provide storage facilities. We cannot, and we have all the brain power. Everything we have in Nigeria is good, except the leadership. Our only natural disaster is Nigerian leadership. If we can only get that right, there is nothing that will not establish the fact that God has a Nigerian passport.
All right. That's the point where we put a hold on you now and go over to see what the messages are looking like this morning. Let's see. Ajayi Olunindua has a message waiting for us already. Well, it says the opposition of Peace Corps is that it's going to add to the already overcrowded security agencies of the federal government. I don't know what adjustment is being made to the bill that would justify its existence, especially now that the federal government is pruning down on MDA's, aka Orosaye report. Ajayi Olonilua from Magodo, GRA Sherry's thoughts this morning. And I would find Peter from Festac with a message. He says, compulsory drug test for secondary school students, please. Why are politicians not going through the drug test? Corruption scrutiny and found wanting should be jailed. Very laudable, but start with political officials first. That's what he says. Now, Dare stops by. Olabode from Surulere has some messages here waiting, and he says, you know what? Let me send massive. Okay, it goes on to lay flowers at the doorsteps of former Governor Raji Fashola and consider him the mastermind and visionary of all the rail project. And we experienced the real mega city in Lagos during his time. Olabode from Surulere. That's in relation to the Red Rail commissioned yesterday in Lagos by the president. Gilbert Musa's thoughts waiting here says from Festac, on the launch of the Red Rail line in Lagos, we commend the governor and his team, but we should learn from the mistakes of the once vibrant Lagos Rail that started in Ebute Metta in 1898 and collapsed in the mid-1980s. We should also ensure these rail routes have security infrastructure for safety of the ride. Now I go over to get Tony from Marine Beach in to get this message across now. Ukraine is in war, sending us food. Very soon they will give us cash. I really don't know if our political leaders have any iota of shame in them. So sad. But again,
it's back to cash anyway. It's back to cash.
No, but gentlemen, see it this way. A man who is hungry, should he be concerned about pride or the hunger now? You guys are talking about pride and you are hungry.
It's not about pride. It's about lack of shame.
Oh, okay.
Lack of shame.
Pride goes before the shame, right?
I just feel that we should be able to do better. We are not even
we can do
a lot of capacity.
We can do a lot better, honestly.
Anthony Francis, okay, that's Tony from Marine Beach. I'm looking at your message. I've seen that already. So let's go. Ibrahim Zachari's thought is what I'm looking at right now. The storyline of Ukraine, a war-ravaged country, could still send us food. I weep for my country. Zach Zeno sent in that one. And gentlemen, now you weep a country at war still. What about the most often than not, the gift that keeps on giving from the other world? Most times when we are broke, even from the dead, we still get reminder of loot being recovered.
Uncle A.
Okay.
Uncle A.
All right, gentlemen, we are out of time. I just want to say thank you. It's always a pleasure and a good way to get into the weekend with you both most of the time on the show. Thank you to AB Bozimo for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agree, disagree with me, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all channels.
And I see Joseph Obari, thank you so much also. And get well very soon. We appreciate that you take our time even to still come on the show. We understand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rest well.
I see a will help you. Right. Joseph.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe that's why it was even dropped in the first place for his flu, but moving on.
He wasn't wearing face mask.
Emeka, I see you on the timeline with your message. I see Jews also. I see Dima Puza's message, but really, this is all we can take at the moment. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. I'll need you to join me in 15 minutes. That's about 15 minutes past the hour of 8 for the Locker Room with Tega. Stay tuned. Pogba is in there.